session. It's on the international exchange programs. So invariably, in most of our info sessions, we get asked these questions. What are the opportunities for exchange collaborations with other B schools? How many terms can I study abroad? How does it work? What is the bidding system? And so on and so forth. So today is the right session for you to ask those questions. We are joined by as current students alums who have been part of those sessions, and you can hear it right from their experiences, and also you can look at why you should opt for international exchanges if you get an opportunity. So today's session, we have Mayank, Abha, and Jay Prakash from the class of 2023. I'm Amit Tyagi, Associate Director for Admissions. You have seen me on other sessions, and Arun Prakash, of course, from the admissions team. And we are happy to host you today. We'll for the first part of the session, we'll have curated questions which we have collated through the registration process, and then we'll open the session for the audience to ask questions as well. So let's dive in and let's start the session. First off, I'll ask the alums to introduce themselves one by one. Tell us about them, about their pre-ISB experience. Why did they choose to be at ISB, and what are they doing currently? And then we'll move on to the other aspects of international exchange. So, Mayank, why don't we start with you?
Yeah. Hi everyone, this is Mayank. Pre-ISB, I was a mechanical and automotive engineer. I studied in Delhi College of Engineering. So after that, I joined Siemens as a GTE and worked there for 7 years in project management. And afterwards, my decision was to go directly to ISB because it's the most renowned institution, at least in India for sure. And I wanted to leverage my career in that respect also. I just wanted to leverage it to some startup wherein I can join and use that prospective experience which I had and then do something good about it. In ISP, I did specialize in marketing and IT, and right now I'm in Ola as a program manager, and yeah, doing good. Thank you.
Man, Abha, how about you?
Hello all. So pre-ISB, I was an electrical engineer and I was working as a business analyst with a banking institute, and I had close to 4.5 years of experience. The reason I chose ISB because again, like Mayank, I wanted to leverage my work ex and be with the cohort where people are coming with different work ex and they have some exposure, because I wanted to also change my industry. So at ISB, I kind of experimented that what my major would be. I didn't go with a preset idea. So I thought that I would do in strategy and marketing, but I ended up liking finance a lot. So I did in finance. So my old banking self didn't leave me there. But then I wanted to get into consulting and I did get. So yeah, I'm working with Carney right now and I've just started like a couple of months back and it's going good so far.
Great. Jay Prakash?
Hi, so I did mechanical engineering from IIT Patna way back in 2016. And post that, I joined Bharat Petroleum as in their aviation business unit. I worked for roughly 5.5 years. And post that, I wanted to be with a cohort which would be slightly experienced. And therefore, I either was looking at USB schools or I just applied to ISB. So in India, I applied only to ISB. I was looking at just doing 1 year MBA exam so that it's quick. I get to be in the industry pretty quickly. And then I also wanted to pivot, which is something that ISB offers as an opportunity. So I pivoted to consulting. And so currently I'm with Deloitte India. And I'm working in their mobility team. Yeah.
Great. So let's talk about the international exchange programs. So what was the school that you ended up going to, and what were the other choices you had in terms of international collaboration or the school which you wanted to go to? If you could just touch upon that, maybe Jay, will start with you.
Sure. So I ended up with the Fletcher School, which is part of the Tufts University. So the top three schools that I was thinking of was Wharton, Kellogg, and then I wanted to go to Fletcher. Of course, there were other business schools as well that I could choose, but these three were my top priority. More or less, I was looking at 4 different areas while at ISB. I was looking at strategy, marketing, finance, and a bit of other subjects, but mostly these three. So Wharton is known for its finance a bit more. So that was one. Second, Kellogg is known for its marketing. And third, I wanted to go to Fletcher because of 2 reasons. So Fletcher is a very different school. And it offers an international business bent. So that was one reason. And second was, while at Fletcher, one can cross-register at Harvard Business School. So I did one course there. So the best part was I would get to spend my time both at Fletcher and at Harvard Business School. So I try to make sure that I choose these 3. Besides that, there were other schools as well, HEC and NY Stern. But of course, I got Fletcher and I was pretty happy with that too.
Great. Abha?
Yeah, so I ended up going to KAI's School of Business, which is the MBA arm of Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology. So it's one of the leading colleges of Korea. I think one of the top 3 there. And I chose, so my choices were Wharton because as Jayaprakash already mentioned that I was leaning towards finance and I wanted to go to Wharton. And then my second choice was my criterias were either I go for school for the major I'm doing it, or it would be for to experience the culture. So I was also leaning towards European school where HSC was my choice, and then I was a little bit inclined towards Asia. So in Asia, Korea was one country that I wanted to experience. So hence those were my preferences, and the process worked, and I ended up in KAIS. And I had a very different experience, I would say, that I was not expecting it. But since it was also a tech school and MBA school, so I get to interact with a lot of students. We were like 30 around exchange students and from all over the world. There were a lot of people from Europe. There were people from other Asian countries, as well as some from I would say there were none from US, but other part of the world. So it was like a melting pot of different cultures, and also it was for 4 months long because of the process. So those 4 months I lived out what I wanted to, that I got to experience all of the culture, and I was there, and the program was amazing. And maybe we can talk a lot more later on with other questions.
Sure. Mayank, how about you?
So my preferences were, first was Wharton, second was Kellogg, and the third one was HEC Paris. But I took a different approach. I used to make all the list. Like I wanted to do an international exchange for sure. So I wanted to go to any European school, which is like IE or IESE. That was also in my list. But luckily I got Kellogg, so it converted. But I mean, my major takeaway is that with international experience or this exchange, they add so much value to you, which maybe you are also not familiar. So maybe the approach which normally all the people take is only for the big schools, because I mean, everybody has their own perceptions of like what is there in that particular school. But I feel if you go to any good school, the value add is greater than what you can imagine. No. And the preferences are this only. Any other questions? Sorry, I just forgot.
Sure. So I'll put this question to you first. You all had preferences in terms of 1, 2, 3, and you ended up with either the second, third, or first choice. So how does the whole process work from the ISB's point of view? How do you go about? We've heard about the bidding points, or let's say as a student, I want to go to Kellogg's and nothing else. How do I do that? What do I have to give up in return for doing that? Or are there any prerequisites in terms of ACADS? How does the process work for shortlisting the schools and the students?
Should I go?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. There are no prerequisites per se, but the only requisite which I heard was that you have to maintain at least 2.5 GPA, CGPA, if I'm not wrong. And I think this is very easy to maintain, first thing. If you are in ISB, you can do so. Then the second part is that the bid kitty, it can be utilized for taking electives. So you have to see if you want to go for an exchange, what electives will be there. So there is kind of a, what do I say? I mean, you have to make a balance between where to use your points. One is elective versus international points. So that was, in my opinion, the biggest hurdle per se. Like, I wanted to do all the great courses which everyone wants to do, but now you also have to balance. So this is what ISB and everything teaches. Like, you have to prioritize whether you want to go for an exchange and also electives. I bid the maximum for Kellogg, but for other schools, I had different strategy. Like, I mean, I could have done with 1,000 for one other school because I just wanted to maximize my learnings in ISB as well. In Kellogg, there was a different kitty which we use for bidding for different subjects in Kellogg as well, because there are some famous subjects which everyone wants to take, but not everyone is as per bid kitty they are allowed to. So that's all. I mean,
Sure. Amma, what was your strategy in terms of bidding? I mean, how did you go about bidding for courses or international exchange? If you would give some insights into that.
Sure, sir. So for me, again, it was very clear that because we are assigned at the start of the course some bid points, and we have to see how we will go about it. And also the international, this exchange bidding happens sometime around, if I'm not wrong, September or October, where we start taking our elective courses. We just start taking those courses. So you have all the points, and people get greedy and they want to bid all, they want to get higher because it gets a little competitive. So my strategy was also clear because Wharton was number one on my list. So I also went a little bit with the chances probability, because they assign you a number. So I saw what was my number and what are my chances of getting converted, and accordingly I decided that okay, Wharton, surprisingly I had a very low number in that, and I really thought it would convert, so I went all out for Wharton. But then someone else got more lucky than me. So for the second school, I was clear that okay, I want to save my points, and courses wise I was more sorted than Mayank, because I wanted to do finance. And if any one of you want to do finance major, don't worry about the bid points, you'll have a lot, so you can go all out, because courses are amazing, but they go really low, which is good for people who want to do finance. So then I didn't have any problem in converting KAIS, my Korean school, because, and it was also, it went for not a lot of amounts, because I think there were only 2 or 3 applicants. Exchange also gets, so I would just like to bring one more point here, because since it's only a 1-year program, so a lot of you would be interested, but by the time exchange comes, you might not want to do it. So that is again another question that you want to think to yourself, that whether you want to go ahead with it or not. Do it before you like put all your bid points on it. That is one of my advice.
Sure, sure. Jayaprakash, how about you? What was your strategy per se?
Yeah, so I was pretty keen on taking an international exchange. So right from the beginning, I was pretty clear about it. But obviously, it's a hit or miss. I mean, it depends whether how many students are there, positions are there. But I was pretty clear that I would sort my courses out, but I would definitely go for an exchange. So I had kept all my 1,200 points on the side, which is the maximum that one has to bid for. I mean, again, the number is not important, but I'd put the maximum aside just to make sure that these are the points that I require if I need to go. And I kept them aside, and then post that I began thinking of my electives. Again, from the point that Hapa mentioned, so I strictly wanted to do a strategy as well, which is something that I needed because I wanted to pivot to consulting. So, and strategy courses are one of the most competitive and one of the most bid courses. So I took the chance. I said, I definitely want exchange. I'll still think about what courses I can get. I was not very keen on taking specializations. So I took only strategy and leadership as my specialization, whereas I dabbled with courses from marketing, courses from finance, and other courses as well. So my strategy more was just fix the entire amount for the international exchange, and then figure out all the things later. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So let's move on to the next question. Of course, how you the process works. That's clear to the audience now. But definitely, audience will want to know about your key learnings from an exchange program. So, what were your top three learnings, maybe in terms of academics or in terms of the campus life from the exchange program? So we can go with you first, Jay. If you could share your insights about your experiences.
Sure. So one of the things was I had not worked in an international setting. I didn't have as much international exposure prior to ISB. So one of the things that kind of hit me was first, the education is very different. It's slightly different, especially American education system is very different. So that was one, and at the same time, the process of working on a problem is also very different. And I'll come to my second point, which is a very radical diversity. So just to bring it to its core, I went to Fletcher and HPS, and these are two very different schools. So Fletcher is an international relations school, and it offers international business, masters in international business as well. So, which is a slight twist to the regular business curriculum that we have. And Fletcher is known more for its international affairs and international relations bent. So I got to do that. And then I was at HPS too, wherein in the same class, there were students who cross-registered from Harvard Kennedy School, Harvard Law School, Harvard Medical School, Harvard Ed School. So I think the diversity part was immense. I mean, there was just a ton of different diversity striking from everywhere. There would be someone who would be sitting, just a feed from you who will be coming from a different country altogether. I met people from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Europe. I had a friend who was from Switzerland. So it's just the nationality and the diversity of the discipline that they are following and the thought that they would have. And then third was, which was a field course. I think this is very typical of a few business schools. So I really wanted to get into consulting. And so for an entire semester, there was a course dedicated, which had projects from different companies coming up. So I took a project which was offered to Fletcher by Deloitte. And then I worked with Deloitte US's team and, working along people from Fletcher who were with an international relations bent of mind. And then working with them and then coming up with problem was a very different experience. I think diversity and international experience and the diversity in thought, was immense. Yeah.
Right. So diversity in terms of thought and international experiences, that's the key keywords here. Abha, how about you?
Yeah, so I again have the diversity is pretty common here because I had the same experience. There were students from more than, I would say, 10 plus countries, majority from the US. So, Europe. You get to see how they think, and in a class discussion also, like how different. So ISB class discussion was going forward in one way. You have seen that entire year, then you go there, and there you have a different kind of way how people counter each other, how people raise contradiction but still make a point. And then the professors. So Kais have some of the professors who regularly travel to US schools and give lectures there. So they were kind of bringing that back in. And then again, there was a huge chunk of Korean students. They are very different as a culture from us Indians. So I got to see how diligent, like they were if you have given a project, we Indians are guilty of, most of us do it at the last moment. We pull it like amazingly, but we tend to push it to the last moment. But they are diligent from the start. So kind of that way how people handle things, try to pick up some of the good practices from all of them. Then one personal takeaway for me was I was a vegetarian in Korea. So on food front, like I have picked up a lot of things, and that is helping me as a person here back in India. So those two things. And third would be for me the curriculum. So ISB is a 1-year program. It was very rigorous, and that is something I signed up for. I needed also. There it was. It's a 2-year program, so their semester was for 4 months. So the classes and the curriculum were little slower, so it also kind of helped me understand that okay, this is how normally a pace would go. It was kind of laid back for me, so I was not under as much pressure as an ISB, but ISB pressure has prepared me so well that there it was extra laid back for me, so I enjoyed it a little more.
In terms of you mentioned that the pace was not very fast. So were you also able to go around maybe Korea or other places and explore country even
Yeah, yeah.
outside the school?
Yeah, so since the pace was so slow, so and I was able to manage, so I went to Japan, I went to Vietnam. One other friend who went to Korea with me, she went to Indonesia and Singapore, and there were people traveling to Philippines and all the nearby Asian countries. So it was good experience.
Great, great. How about you, Mayank?
I'll just start with the third point first, I mean, which she touched upon. So I went to Kellogg and I just wanted to go around the US. And but I made some plans with some of the friends. Unluckily, they had to drop off the plan and then go back to their home countries. So I was there alone. So first thing which I learned there was that you have to love yourself being alone, and you have to take decisions and also see for yourself what is that thing which counts for you, what is that thing which can make you happy. You just don't drop plans just because nobody came up or turned up. So first thing is living or enriching yourself with whatever experience you can gather. So first thing was that. Academically, I thought that Kellogg is much better in terms of how to sell yourself and your ideas. This is also a course they had just uh, the info. But people, even if you have to make any judgment, you have to ask somebody else for their opinion sometimes because you are not an expert. There also, it was kind of a networking. You had to gain people's trust before even asking questions. Much more transactional than Indian society is. So if you want to network for a company, you have to start 6 months in ahead, and they used to do so much detailed planning. Like what is their preferences, how do they want to be contacted upon, what are the timelines and all. So second thing, I mean, how to sell yourself and your ideas. So they were very keen and they were very particular on how to approach people, and what is the benefit which can come to the other party. They used to write it. So second thing is, it's very important, I think, in daily life also. You are just selling. Third thing is, I thought that it was not that quant heavy as India. I mean, as Indian schools are, particularly ISB also. I felt that they cherish the opinions which were off track also, and they do not penalize on somebody taking a different road and still going to a wrong result, but they'll come back like, you took that road, that was a wrong result, now come back and then start again or take different approach. So that was something which was a thought leadership kind of a way. I felt it was much different. And second similar point is, everyone used to listen to other person's opinion and then build on that, rather than just putting their own opinions and just, I mean, puking out everything, every information they have. So these, I think, those three takeaways I have taken from them.
Great. So the next question is a bit about your experiences across both ISB and international B schools. So since you have spent some time abroad at schools and also at ISB, so how would you compare ISB with other B schools abroad? Maybe in terms of the academics, in terms of the experience. Although we have touched upon a few points in terms of the rigor, maybe the quant is more heavy in ISB, or maybe the other opinions are valued as we're talking about. But how would you compare your experiences at ISB, and what would you say in terms of for any candidate looking at right now for deciding to join a B school abroad or B school in India? What will your advice be to them? You can start with your mic.
Okay, sure. What I feel is academically, if you join ISP, you have to be very focused and you should be thorough on what you want to be afterwards. Because the placements happen in a jiffy manner. I mean, they happen in 6 months, 7 months. So you need to be very, very particular. And then also, I feel that the marks are important. Everywhere they're important, but specifically in ISP, they are much more important. In Indian space, everyone looks at. So you have to be very thorough in the start itself, even though you are struggling in some fronts, but still you have to go very, very fast. So that way I felt that um, just completely transforming your career, it's different in ISB versus in Kellogg, because in Kellogg or any other B school, I feel a 2-year program, it's easier and you get to have ample time. This is my opinion of this thing. And I forgot the question again. Sorry. Any other thing?
I think that was it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Jay, your perspectives?
Yeah, so if I were to recommend people to choose between ISB and schools abroad, I think the proposition is very different. So schools abroad, as Mayank said, you generally spend 2 years. There is greater scope for you to pivot. You are much more laid back. There is a semester system in most USB schools. So generally you have an extended 4.5 months to study a particular topic and then move on. So, but at ISB, since it's a 1-year program, much of the things need to be accelerated. So generally a term here, there are 8 terms, and a term here goes on for around a month or a little more than a month. So generally it's much more concentrated. So you need to be on the tip of your toes. You need to be extremely clear. I mean, to the extent I have seen, generally some of the subjects that are very complicated, subjects like corporate finance, for people who are encountering it for the first time, there are 2 different terms dedicated to it. But generally, it's much more focused, much more concentrated, bite size and capsule size, and you need to be on the tip of your toes. So that's one. And second, if I were to recommend, I think financial is one thing that people should take into account. So, as I just mentioned, I was applying only to US schools and ISB. One of the things I realized is after having gone to the exchange, I burned through roughly 7.5 to 8 lakhs during my exchange program, which lasted from 4.5 to 5 months. And if I may say, this is on a lower, on a lower amount basis. This was way lower than someone on an average would spend. So this is me being frugal. And so, if you multiply that by 4, and sure, you will get some amount from internship too. And of course, you will be taking loans. But there is just huge financial burden that you build up, which is not really the case when you are studying at ISB. So I think these 2 things need to be kept in mind before choosing between US schools and ISB.
Yeah.
Very well said. Abhay, about your perspectives?
Yeah. So for me, I was very clear that I wanted. So for me, the case was when I was applying to schools, initially MBA schools, it was either ISB because I wanted experienced cohort, and also it was 1 year, or the US schools which I had in mind. So I would like to touch upon Jayaprakash's point. While selecting the school, I selected ISB because of the financials and as well as my future plan, which didn't align. I didn't want to stay outside for long. So then it doesn't make sense for me to take up a huge loan and come back to India to pay it. So ISB was great. I would say coming from an engineering background and from a banking background, which is kind of a slow paced life. Like you get a lot to explore, and my work was also kind of business analyst. It's like a for a lack of better words, like a R&D setup. Also, you just give banks advice. So from there to ISB, it was a very different change of pace, I would say. But I signed up for it because I wanted to get into consulting. I wanted to experience it. And also I signed up because it was 1 year program I did. And it prepared me for my current job. So if anyone wants to pivot to a fast moving industry, there's nothing better than ISB. You need to go through it. And the best part of it, that you as a cohort going through it, so you don't feel the pressure. You'll just like, it will be all fun. In the morning you'll be attending 2 classes, doing projects, and in the evening you'll be partying also next day, and weekends will be all resume, like till your placements it will be all whoosh whoosh whoosh, but you will enjoy, trust me. And then foreign school for exchange, so I would say there was definitely a change of pace because it was a 2-year program, but I was kind of missing ISB space, honestly. So that was a plus for me, the ISB pace wise. Program wise, again, I would say the how ISB is structured, I didn't feel that I missed out on anything. That if a semester is 1 month long, they have done it so well that you cover everything that I was doing that in 4 months. And hence, for me, it was extra slow because the syllabus was same. So if I was trained to do it in 1 month, so there's nothing you are missing out. Probably from Korea perspective, I will say, not from the US. You are missing out in the structure, and there were professors who like teach at US schools also. So I would say it doesn't differ much. And third part, I would say international exchange. So this is one of the greatest offering at ISB. I was very clear I want to go because I wanted that international experience, either through MBA, but since I decided not to go through for an MBA, this was my shorter route, I would say. It helped me experience it. It helped me gain the best practices internationally. It helped me make connects, network, and almost for like 1/4 or 1/5 of the cost. So it was amazing. Like if you guys decide to end up at ISB, do choose foreign exchange, like even if it's for a month or something. Don't get lazy towards the end that we want to spend with our friends. Go out. I would.
So I'm preempting a question by the audience, which we get every session. Maybe any of you can answer it. So most of the exchanges happen with the program, which are 2-year program, and we are touching upon the fact that they're much more spread out and relaxed. At ISB, we have smaller terms. So how do we reconcile the exchange programs? I mean, how much time is there for you to spend across different universities? What is the time frame involved? Does it happen after play? How do placements happen in between? So any insights on those things?
Sure, I may take that. So generally, so you have 8 terms, and it's different for everyone, right? For some, it's international exchange during 1 term, which is sometimes 1-year MBA programs as well. For 2-year MBA program, generally 2-year MBA program, at least in the US, I believe similar is the case for other countries too, generally go on for a semester, which means 4.5 months. So they generally eat up 2 of your terms. You generally, if you were at ISB, you would be taking 2 terms. But if you are on an exchange for a 2-year MBA program, you will be taking an entire semester. So generally it goes for 4.5 months, and generally after January. So I went on January 10th and then came back to India in towards the end of May. So it's generally those last 2 terms. In terms of placements, so placements happen towards the later end of November. So generally placements happen before you go on exchange. So I had an offer from Deloitte India before I went on exchange. So yeah, this is how it works, I believe.
Right. So as you mentioned that it could be 2 terms for them and 1 term. I mean, 1 term there and 2 terms for you. So is there also a possibility that people do exchanges after their graduation as well? They continue to do that?
Yeah, I can.
Yes. Yeah,
because
sure.
I was that person. No, if you want to go ahead, Jay, please. So for me, as Jay mentioned, that the school comes at different time, but most of the schools that I saw was after placement. So you are already done with the placements by the time you start. It will start by December or January. For me, I spent last of my ISB term at the school, and it was 4 month long. So hence, after my cohort, like my friends graduated, I was still at the school. So it is very, I would say, personal call. Like if you end up choosing, the timelines are already given, so you can decide that which school to go for according to the timeline. And it will be always after placement, so you don't have to worry about the placements and the prep. Everything is done. You might want to talk to your company that how your joining would be. So in our case, like I already raised it to my company that won't be available till June. So that is one thing that is for you to keep in mind, but you will be well aware in advance that when to go for exchange.
Great. So with that, let's open up to the audience. Audience, you can raise your hands and we'll unmute you and you can ask your questions. So we already have a couple of hands raised. Weber, you want to ask your question? Weber, you can unmute yourself and ask your question. Yeah, Weber is not there. Sachin? Go ahead, Sachin. Please ask your question.
My voice is audible?
Yes, it is audible. Slightly low, but go ahead.
Hello, everyone. This is Sachin Sapasta
Yeah, Sachin.
from Indore. I just want to ask one question about the admissions at ISB. Like, the admission in ISB, the lower academics person is a favorable candidate for ISB admission, or it is slightly a barrier for the admissions? That is my question.
Over academics is what you're saying? I'm sorry, your voice.
Lower academics.
Lower academics. Okay, so I'll take that question. See, at ISB, we do not have a cutoff on the academics or for that matter, any other aspect. We look at holistic profiles of the candidate. So if your academics are a bit low, then cover it up in other areas of your application. Could be GMAT score or GRE score, work essays, or your LORs and stuff. So as long as you have something in your profile which covers up your lower academics, I think you should be fine.
Thank you.
Hello.
Go ahead, Vibhav.
Yes, sir. So my question is for Jayaprakash sir. Actually, I am also a mechanical engineer, pass out in 2016. So how difficult is it for a mechanical engineer to pivot into a consulting?
Sure, I'll take that. So, I mean, so there is no clear answer and there is no, one size fit all answer that I can give to everyone. Consulting firms generally look at what you have done, how you have done, what was the impact that you made, which college did you go to, how did you go to, did you do something exceedingly well there? So I can only talk about my journey, but yes, it was not an easy task. I took a lot of strategy courses. I didn't know anything about consulting at all. So when I was starting, I didn't know what case studies are. I didn't know how case interviews go. I also didn't know. So of course, while preparation for ISB, I did do a bit of these guesstimate questions, but I also didn't know what how to approach guesstimates. So there are two different ways in which you generally approach consulting. First is you try to make sure that you do impactful work via your resume, right? You do something impactful while at job. You also try to bring in good academics from prior to your ISB. While at ISB, you need to make sure that you do your academics also well, take as many strategy courses as you can, learn about consulting, and then second, take an ELP or take a kind of a program which, pro bono consulting or ELP, which gives you some kind of experience related to consulting. And third, which is absolutely important, which is when you sit for placements, you will generally do one-on-one interviews, these case interview prep with your fellow students. So do that as well. But there is no clear answer, but I think these three, if you nail them properly, you can pivot properly. You can pivot easily.
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, Paritosh. Please ask your question.
Good evening, everyone. So I wanted to ask about the international experience. So like all of you have mentioned that, the placements happen before you choose a college, before you decide to go, So I just wanted to know what's the actual significance of going or having an international experience. It's just a personal choice, or does it really affect somewhere in during the course of ISB? So just wanted to know that. Does that make sense?
So I think that's what we were all discussing. Anyways, Abha, Mayank, you want to take a stab at that? Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just a personal choice per se. If you want to go ahead and make your learnings more enriching, you go for an exchange. Otherwise, you can also stay back at ISB and it's perfectly okay and perfectly well. Nothing really adds up. I mean, there is no subtraction in your journey.
Yeah, also there is one question in the chat box, that is your profile evaluated in selection of exchange schools? So I would like to say it's not at the time when you are selecting your school and you are bidding for the school. ISB does not evaluate your profile apart from that minimum pointer you need, which is very easy to do, so don't worry about it. But after you have done it, the schools might have different criteria. Sometimes they might need you to write a letter. Sometimes they might need you to maintain certain GPA till the time you reach there. So it will be very dependent on schools, and it's very school specific. So ISB does not have any criteria, if that was the question.
Thanks, Abha, for answering that. There's also another question. Is there a limit on the maximum number of courses we can take internationally? Jay, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so there is indeed a limit. So what you generally do is there are a given number of credits that you can take at ISB. And to just make sure, because there is a lot of transferability. So since you are moving from a 1-year program to a 2-year MBA program, there would be different credit system here at ISB. There would be different credit system at the international school. What generally is the case is that you try to make sure you fulfill all the credits at your home school at ISB, barring a few credits that ideally you can take at your international school. Of course, the international exchange coordinator at ISB will obviously guide you with it. But yes, there is a limit to it. For me, there was a limit of 4 courses. I did audit one of the course, separately by talking to the professor at Fletcher. But I took 3 courses at Fletcher and I took 1 course at HBS. So there is a limit to how many courses you can do.
Thanks, Jay. Pranjal, go ahead with your question.
Yes, thank you, sir. Hello, everyone. So I'm Pranjal. I'm a chartered accountant by profession. So my question was on lines with basically I'm inclined towards private equity and VC sector. So at ISB, though it's very well known for consulting, but are there any opportunities in this private equity or VC sector, maybe within ISB or even the international colleges that are associated for exchange program?
Any of you can take this, maybe. Abha, if you have any insights, or Mayank, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I can also share like my opinion. So in ISB, I think there are tons and loads of opportunities for PE or VC exit. But what normally the firms see is that do you have the relevant experience for them or not? So this is one of the criteria which at least the Indian firms look at. In US, it's slightly easier to pivot because you have ample amount of time. You can go through um, all the corporate finance and also other materials which are needed. So that's why I feel the US market is much bigger in terms of PE and VC. So if you go for an international exchange, it's easier to apply in those colleges also. I mean, after you go to the college, you can also apply in their placement seasons. I mean, at least it was allowed in Kellogg. So similarly, I think you can also opt in. But in India also there are tons and loads. But the only thing is, do you have the relevant experience or do you have the relevant knowledge which they really need is not. So that's.
Thanks. Abha, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, I would just like to add that there was also this very amazing opportunity, because I don't come from the PE or VC background. There was an internship which was campus funds, if I remember correctly. So they came early on to the campus and I applied for the process. They took fewer people this year, so I did not get through it. But while I was preparing, it was an extensive process. I got exposed to the entire how they evaluate the company, and that was my first exposure and really liked it. So if you have goals, you will find ample opportunity. You'll just have to prepare your profile, or you'll have to work extra hard if you don't have the background. So but you will get opportunity, and you also have amazing peers who are CFA levels and coming from the financial background, and they are always like one of the, like, I survived finance only because they were there and they helped me everywhere.
Thanks. Ritika, go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, I'm audible.
Yes, you are. Slightly, maybe.
Thanks, Amit.
If you could speak louder.
Sure. I had a question to Jay. You said that you went to Fletcher and did cross-registered at Harvard. I just wanted to know, is there not an option to directly opt for Harvard as part of the exchange program?
Yeah, so
Or
Harvard,
why did you choose Fletcher, if there is?
sure. So Harvard Business School does not have any exchange program, as far as I know, with any school. You can only cross-register at Harvard while you are at one of the grad schools at Harvard, or while you are at MIT Sloan School of Management, which I think also does not have as many exchange programs. I think it does not have. I don't have clarity on that, so you can check. And while you are at Fletcher. And Fletcher gives you an option while you are an exchange student there to cross-register at Harvard Business School. So you cannot apply to Harvard Business School directly from any school, any business school that is not part of the Harvard community or Fletcher community or MIT community, I'm sorry, as well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure.
Yogi Raj, go ahead.
Hi, sir. Currently working in an SME in the pharma sector. Wanted to know what is the kind of the career opportunities that one might look at with respect to the pharma sector, because predominantly, as we know, the college is focused on the consulting roles. That is one thing. And is there any way one can try and experiment with startup ideas within these sectors, say pharma? That is my question. But, yeah.
Sure. I think if you look at the placement report for the last 5 years, you will find a lot of information on the various organizations which come in, including pharma sector per se. But if it's very specific to that, also I'll just briefly touch upon the incubation ecosystem before I ask any of the ILMs to share their personal experiences. So we have 2 incubation centers at ISB, and you can apply to be incubated by any of them. After you complete a course, and you not just get office space, but you also get a stipend for a year, and you can also sit for placements after a year if you or don't succeed in your incubation efforts. So those options are all there at ISB, but I let the LMs speak from their experiences. Maybe any of you who has experiences of their batchmates getting into pharma or about the pharma space in general at ISB, please do share.
Okay, so I can take that. I had one colleague, one member from my study group, original study group, the initial semesters. We call them OGSG. So I had one, batchmate who was from pharma, and she was really interested in getting into the PE space in pharma and in healthcare. So she got a pivot and she made it to the PE space in the healthcare sector. So pharma is something that you can do, but then there is also a healthcare specialization. It's just that when the companies come, they generally look for someone with an experience in pharma, and generally also people who have a healthcare experience, either people who have done MBBS earlier or people who come with dentistry background, or even have worked prior to ISB and in pharma, they generally have better chances, and opportunities are there. So you can make. I've seen people do that.
I hope it answers the question, Yogi.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Pranjal, do you have another question to ask?
No, sir. I think I'll just lower my hand. Sorry. Thank you.
Fine. I don't see any more hands raised, and all the questions in the chat are also answered. So, with this, we'll end this session. Thank you, Alims, for taking time out from your busy schedules and interacting with the audience today. Thank you, audience, for being a part of this session. I know it was a niche topic, but I'm sure you will have all got a lot of insights, not just international exchanges, but also from ISV per se. And okay, there's one more hand raised. We'll take one more last question before we close. Pragdish, you want to ask your question?
Yes, Mr. Tyagi. So sorry for the late response. So I'm working in a corporate company. Recently I'm going to take up a new project, which is going to be a new investment for the business. And I'm just seeing like I want to join ISB this year, and I'm planning to give my GMAT, and I am planning to apply for the round three. So I'm not sure. Like once I take up the responsibility here in this in my company, so it is difficult for me to come out of that opportunity and join ISP. And I don't want to give a false commitment to my management also. So I want to know how the deferral program in ISP works, and whether they will take this reason as an exception, and they will defer my admission for this year if I get admit in ISP.
So typically we would accept a year's deferral for the reason that you mentioned. That should be allowed. But again, all deferrals are approved by the competent authority, and all deferrals there's no guarantee that you will get a deferral. First step is get an admission, and then you apply for a deferral, and accordingly you get granted basis the reason that you mentioned. But people with your reason have usually got a deferral for a year, not beyond that. So yes, that's very much possible. But the first step, of course, is to get an offer, and then you can apply for a deferral per se.
Yes, sure. Thank you very much.
So I think with that, we are now truly at the end of the session. Thank you once again. Thank you, LMs, once again for taking time out, and thank you, Arun, and the AV team for being for helping us out. And all the best to all the participants, and wish you all good night.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Amit.
Thank you. Pleasure.
Thank you. All the best.
AV team, you can stop the recording and you can end the meeting for all.
Okay, sir. Thank you.